welcome. Welcome to our version of Worthy. Worthy comes from the book by Jamie Kern Lima. It is a book that each of us has been inspired by, and we wanted to share with you. Jamie wrote this book in a very, very vulnerable manner, doing a lot of internal soul work. And we hope to bring some of that to you, being vulnerable and authentic with you ourselves. Jamie's proceeds from this book go to Feeding America and a couple of other of her passionate projects, I would say. So it's not that she's doing this for profit. She really is doing this because she believes so fully. And it is not just a book. It has really become a movement. And we are excited to be part of that. She also has started book clubs. So there are a lot of people around the country, around the world, really, who are holding book clubs like once a week, once a month, whatever it might be. And she has also created a workbook that goes along with her book. Now, the interesting thing about the workbook is you can just get it with the book. You can download it, and you can work with yourself, for yourself, around yourself in your time frame. And the other exciting thing that's going to be happening is in another, I don't know, couple weeks.
I think it's a couple more weeks.
Couple more weeks. We should be getting a notice that she is actually going to be starting her own podcast. So we're very excited to be able to be part of that. And you know, whether you like to listen to podcasts when you're sitting having lunch, or you like to take it out on a walk with you, whatever that might be, we're pretty excited about that. So I'm going to thank you again for being here. Thank you for participating live, or thank you for tuning in to the replay. And this replay is yours to listen to once or 10 times, whatever it is that
it's going to be that good.
You're just going to want to hear our voice over and over. So does that kind of cover it, Kerry?
I'm going to
hand it over to you.
I think that's great. Yeah. So speaking of the book, I wanted, and I'm going to put my readers on because, you know, we need to be able to see at our age. But before you even get into the book, what she has is kind of the dedication. Really, it's for the 80% of women who don't believe they're enough, the 75% of female executives who deal with imposter syndrome, the 91% of girls and women who don't love their bodies, for the 73% of men who feel inadequate, and the 100% of men who come from a woman and likely have at least one girl or woman in their lives who they care about. When you believe you're fundamentally not enough and unworthy as a person, it is a lie. The time to unlearn that lie has come. And together, let's leave no girl, no woman, no person left behind in knowing that they are worthy. And so again, with a dedication like that, how can you not really want to turn the page and say like, okay, let's dive in and dig in. I was thrilled when Sandy brought the idea to us about getting together, a little bit about each of us. So Sandy is a women's empowerment coach. So she focuses in working with women, really who are kind of in the middle of something, not saying middle age necessarily, but like you're in the middle of a part of your life and maybe you feel stuck, or maybe you feel like it's become your identity and you know that middle isn't where you're going to stay all the time. And you don't know how to transition out of it because you don't know who you are anymore. So your identity gets caught up in what you do day to day. So really helping women uncover and unleash their potential and what they're really, you know, regardless of what age they're at and regardless of the situation. Now, Sherry is a coach. She works with health and lifestyle changes. So people who are looking to, you know, maybe they want to lose weight or they want to have a healthy gut. But what Sherry does, which is so awesome, is she works with her clients to break it down into little steps, little chunks, so that you get that momentum and you build forward. And as you do these steps and they become a habit, then again, it becomes who you are. So you can see with both of these women, and I'll tell you about myself in just a second, how a book like Worthy really can help our coaching practice and working with our clients through it. Now, for me, I'm a strengths and mindset coach. So what that means is I like to help people not only figure out the ways that they, their strengths, and everybody's strengths are different, but also the ways we self-sabotage. So we can have all the confidence in the world. And that's one of the things I work with is confidence, because what your skills and your talents make you feel good. But there are going to be thoughts that you have that are going to sabotage how you're doing what you're doing. So I love working with young people. And by young people, I mean sometimes high school students, college students, people that are early on in their career. I also like to work with women who have their own businesses, because again, the overwhelm that we feel when we feel like everything, all the weight of everything is on our shoulders. And then the last group of people I really enjoy working with is groups of people that work in offices together, small businesses. So think like less than 10 employees. And again, it's because we all need to learn how to get along. And if we all bring our strengths into our workplace and get to do what we're naturally good at every day, it's going to be to much more success in the end. So that's a little bit about me. And again, Worthy really ties into the groups that I like to work with. So we're thrilled that we're able to talk with all of you about the nuggets that we've gotten out of Worthy. Couple of logistics I want to mention. We want to hear from you. So there will be times where we'll ask you to put things in the chat and just tell us that you're tracking along with what it is we're saying. In the chat already, if you take a look at it, our email addresses are in there. So you have those. You can also put any questions that you have. So each of us are going to talk a little bit about a different section of the book. And we want you to put your questions in the chat. And then when we're done, we're going to go through. We have a technological wizard on my right-hand side that you can't see on the screen, but he is going to help us figure out what your questions are, and we will be happy to answer those. So please put those in the chat. I'm hoping that everyone is muted. If you're not muted, we'll ask you to mute yourself now, just because if something happens behind you, we don't want it necessarily to distract everybody. And so I'm going to actually turn things over to Sherry. So Sherry, I think one of the things that you said really struck you was right out of the gate, like that first chapter of Worthy. So
yeah, the first chapter really focuses on the difference between feeling worthy and self-confidence. And I'm just going to level set to make sure everyone knows the difference. When you have self-worth, it's an internal sense of being good enough and worthy enough and belonging, of love and belonging from others. Self-confidence is how you evaluate your skills and traits, and how strongly you believe you can meet life's challenges. If someone has low self-worth, the way that could show up is they downplay or ignore their positive qualities. They judge themselves to be inferior to their peers, and they might call themselves names, using negative words to describe themselves, such as stupid, fat, ugly, or unlovable. One of the messages from the book is, your self-worth is your foundation. The self-confidence is the house you build on top of that foundation, and your house is only as secure as the foundation it's built upon. So based on the statistics that Kerry shared, a lot of people have low self-worth, and what that's causing is a prevalent form of cancel culture. And it's not anything you hear in the news, but it's when someone cancels themselves without even trying something because they don't believe they can do it. And that's a sad state of affairs. One thing that would be helpful to make sure you know the difference between self-worth and self-confidence is to write a list of all the things that you like about yourself. on that list, you can't include anything that could be taken away from you, such as a job or weight loss. Because what happens if you gain the weight back? That really tells you, what you like about yourself and how you view your self-worth. Self-confidence, there are things you do and achieve that are external, but self-worth is within you. Several years ago, I went through a romantic relationship breakup, and then a month or two later, I was laid off from my job. And it made me have a lot of self-reflection, and it made me realize that my identity was really tied to the job and career I had and my relationship status. So I realized I had some opportunities with self-worth, and I evaluated, what do I like about myself, and what do my friends and family tell me that are important attributes about me, that show, why I'm worthy. So I use that as a way to remind myself, because it is an ongoing effort, that I make to remind myself why I'm worthy. And it's not just what I achieved today or last week. It's something that I have with me no matter what.
I think that's a great idea to ask people. So like if you're having a hard time coming up with positive words to say about yourself, ask people that you love and that care about you. What are some things that you would say? I did that exercise once too, a couple years ago, and just a couple of friends, I was blown away about the wonderful things they said about me. And they were things that I truly didn't think about myself. I really didn't. I was like, I'm in this thing. I'm just going to do this activity. And what came back to me was just so humbling.
Yeah, sometimes you're your worst critic.
Yeah.
The last thing I'm going to share with you is a quote that I found from Brene Brown, and it's focused on wholehearted living. Wholehearted living is engaging in our lives from a place of worthiness. It means cultivating the courage, compassion, and connection to wake up in the morning and think, no matter what gets done and how much is undone, I am enough. And when I go to bed at night, thinking, yes, I'm imperfect and vulnerable and sometimes afraid, but that doesn't change the truth that I'm also brave and worthy of love and belonging.
She's such an inspiration.
She is.
As Jamie is, but Renee is as well. And I think that she just makes us look at the simpleness of who we are and love us. Sherry, do you have any words that we might toss out when we think of worthiness, when we think of our own worthiness? I know there's two things that you said. I'll ask that one first, but any
being enough, not living in scarcity, accepting yourself for who you are now and not always thinking about, the future or the past.
Guilty of all.
We did say we were going to be vulnerable, didn't we?
Yeah.
Been there many, many times. And, and that's, another point to make is even though the three of us are here and we're talking about this, like it's all relevant. I mean, you being vulnerable and sharing, what happened with you and your aha moments. And I'm going to be vulnerable and share things that have happened with me. And I know you will as well. But I mean, life always happens to us. It's constantly happening to us. And so we're going to have more and more opportunities to practice our self-worth. And sometimes we're going to get it right. And sometimes we're not going to get it right. But again, the idea is to give yourself some grace and try to move on and not let it, suck you into the vortex of negativity. Which again, I think probably at different times, all of us have been sucked into that vortex. So again,
yeah, I think what's most important about this is the need to share this with our family and friends and nieces and daughters and sons, that your worthiness is so important. You can go out and get all the degrees in the world, but if you don't feel like you're worthy, those two things go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Great point.
Yeah.
Great point. And I liked what you said, Sherry, that you found the opportunity, not the problem,
Mhm.
not beating yourself up, but you had an opportunity to investigate. And I think that's probably what I would say about Jamie's writing.
Mhm.
She really has gone into understanding herself. And when you read the book, she shares some of the really difficult places she was in. It made me feel very blessed for the abundance that I've had, not abundance financially, but abundance in that I I made some choices that probably were not highly approved of by my mommy and my daddy, but I didn't put myself in some really highly vulnerable
Mm.
situations and dangerous
Dangerous.
situations. And so for that, I am grateful.
Mhm.
Can you share, Sherry, because this was new information to me, you being the corporate gal that you are, canceling, what, can you go into that? What do we cancel society? What does that mean exactly? We cancel ourselves out?
Yeah, nobody even knows that you have this aspiration of something that you want to do.
Ah.
So you internally cancel yourself out. So nobody even knows that you have that desire for that promotion or,
Oh,
to pursue a different
Mm.
career path, for example. So you work on your self-worth and then you determine what kind of qualifications do you need to have to go in that direction. And you take the plunge and do it. But some people don't have that confidence or self-worth to even feel like, they're worthy of going in a different direction and they want to play the safe route.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. And that actually kind of ties into what I want to talk about, which goes into chapter 2, and rejection, the different ways we feel and experience rejection. But before I get into that, I do want to mention to all of you, and not just at the end, but each of us have decided we're going to offer as coaches different options to you to continue the conversation. So Sherry's going to have an option for some free coaching sessions. Sandy's going to have an option, which is great for people who don't have a lot of time, even just 30 minutes. She's going to be able to work wonders with you. And my offer is going to have to do with, again, like continuing the conversation as a group, whether we get together in person or on Zoom and continue the conversation into June. So I just want to put that bug in your ear that will explain more about that in a little bit. But I want to switch over actually, and Sandy, I want to ask you, what were the nuggets that you got out of Worthy that you really wanted to share with all of us? Because thank you. You started us off really, really well. So
you did, Sherry.
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't mean for any of this to be adding to your sense of being overwhelmed. So understand that we're tossing a bit out here for sure. You're going to simply take your nugget. And as Sherry very clearly stated, and I want to reiterate, it takes steps. If I had a magic wand, and I used to think I did, but certainly appears I don't. But what we don't have that magic wand, but we do have the ability to take small bites, small steps, have small successes. And so when I share with you, I literally opened the book, and because I'm not as um, uh, maybe detailed as the two of you, I just opened the book to chapter 14. At least I didn't start at the end.
I was going to say, do you read the last page of a book before you start it? Because there are people who do that.
I know, I'm not that.
All right.
I'm not that. But I do trust that the universe is going to open up and take me right where I need to be.
Okay.
And it absolutely did. Because the first sentences, let me see if I can get it right, were, is this all there is? I went, this is my chapter. Is this all there is? Because more than once in my lifetime, I have stood there and said, is this all there is? The first time was when I was a young mother. So I'm going to ask you to think for a moment about how many hats you wear, how many roles you play. And that's kind of my theme for my coaching, because we take on those hats, those roles. Sometimes we take them on intentionally. Sometimes those roles are kind of given to us with expectation. Sometimes those roles are necessary. You know, Sherry is in the corporate world, and I'm pretty sure she has certain expectations. Would that be fair?
Yeah. Some things I'm assigned that I don't want to do.
There you have it.
Voluntold is
Yes.
the term.
I have heard our technician, our IT guy here say exactly that.
Mhm.
And so when I'm sharing this with you, I want you to maybe even put in the chat, is there a role, a hat that you wear that maybe was kind of assigned to you with an expectation that you don't really want to wear anymore? So taking it back again to me as a young mother, I thought, could I just ever please not just have to do laundry, not just have to make another meal, not just have to clean up, not have to show up, not have to take care of a crying kid? Could I please get a shower? Just alone, by myself, with warm water. It didn't seem like a big wish. Turned out it was, but but what I felt at that moment was disappointed. And I mean, I had two beautiful children. I should be grateful. And I was grateful. But there were still moments when I said, is this all there is? If this is the merry-go-round, I'm not sure I want to stay on this horse. And so that was the first time that I really had to kind of dig a little bit deeper for my purpose. And I discovered, as I became a single mom, my kids were 4 and 8, that I was the role model. And once I decided that I was the role model and I wanted to set a good example and I wanted to show up, not as a harried, crazy lady, which my kids aren't here, they would probably say I was a harried, crazy lady sometimes.
Sometimes.
I
not
think
all
I
the
even raised my voice.
time. Oh,
It's
please.
hard to believe. But I really did want to overall show them that a woman could be strong and still vulnerable. And that was probably my first time saying, is this really all there is? Some of the other questions came later on in life when I knew I had a good life. The kids were on their own, they were healthy, and now have 4 grandchildren, and I have a happy marriage, and I mean, I have it all. But sometimes I still need more.
Mhm.
And that's why I went into coaching, because again, I want to be that role model for women. I want to be that role model for my grandchildren. And so what are you asking yourself? Do you feel selfish because you know you have a great life and you have a house and a home and food and a vehicle, and you know you have maybe a job even that you really enjoy doing, but it isn't always fulfilling. So that's the transition that we women can find ourselves in, and men certainly too. I just happen to be more of a woman's empowerment coach, so I have a tendency to speak in that direction. So if you're counting your blessings and you're feeling the abundance in your life and you're saying, but if you have a but in there, that's where you need to do that worthy. I can have a lot of self-confidence in my ability, and I can know that I can show up for the people that I coach. But in order for me to feel that it's my purpose, I need to be honest with my worthiness, not just my confidence. So I really appreciate that you brought that in so clearly. I do want to share a quote from the book. If I can read, I might have to borrow
my
Carrie's
glasses.
spectacles.
There you go.
You don't rise to what you believe is possible. You fall to what you believe you are worthy of. So we lift ourselves, and when we lift ourselves, we can lift others. And I think that is a very powerful motivator. The other thing comes from a quote from Tony Robbins, and he says, when you say, I don't have time, Tony says you have the time when you are working in alignment with your beliefs. So, talking about our strengths, we also talk about our habits, we also talk about our beliefs. So, how do we undermine ourselves? Because we do a pretty good job at that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say, Sandy, you've been a inspiration to your yoga students as well. And the messages that the media and sometimes friends and family give you as you get older, that you can't do things anymore. And, you know, to just take on to be a coach later in life, I just think you're sending the message that it's never too late to do what you want.
Are you implying I'm the most mature, wisdom-oriented person in this space?
You spent more time on earth than the two of us have.
And I will not acknowledge exactly how much
and we
that is.
honor that because, again, but to your point, I mean, I know, and we all know people in our lives who, you know, the longer they are on the planet, the more cynical and the more stuck in their ways they get. And you, my friend, are not among those people.
I don't
You have a
like
lot of balls in the air.
I don't like to be stuck.
No,
That's
You
true.
don't like to be stuck.
Yeah.
You don't like to be stuck.
And you know, it's interesting. I did have my human design program done for me, and it does talk about the fact that I have to be involved with people, and that I can often see the forest for the trees, and I can see the value in people when they cannot see it in themselves. I see the worthiness, just as your friends and family see the worthiness in you, and they were able to share it. We are not always our own best friends. And one of the things the other quote that I wanted to share comes from Ed Mylett, who was a part of Jamie's program, a very strong, amazing man. And he said, self-confidence should be built on your intentions, not on your accomplishments. Let that one settle in. That's what you were talking about, Sherry.
Yeah.
And that's a part of where you're going for sure. Because if we hold ourselves back because of rejection or fear, then we're not working toward and admiring ourselves for our intentions.
Right.
And I think that that's really powerful. So if any of you think that any of this resonates with you, please go ahead and feel free to put it into the chat. I will share with you actually 4 keys. So if we're talking about fulfillment, how many of you want to feel fulfilled in your life? Yes? So fulfillment has some components, some things that you need to investigate, be curious about. And all of us are trained in positive intelligence. And so we've all taken these messages delivered differently for different platforms, but this is Jamie's. So number 1 is that confidence. So the story you tell yourself is the story that you believe. Can you change that story? Sherry indicated yes, we can change that story. Growth. So thank you for pointing out, both of you, that growth is hugely important to me. And if I'm not growing, in my mind, I'm stagnating. There's nothing pretty about a stagnant pond. And I don't want to be that pond. So growth is one of the other important ingredients. And contribution. So contribution, many of you are already overwhelmed. You're busy. You don't have a lot of time. So please don't think that contribution has to be $100 donation every month, or that you have to work at the food bank every week, or that you have to drive cancer patients to their therapy. It doesn't have to be that big, but it has to be something that fulfills you, that you know you're giving out. Tony Robbins writes 3 notes a day. I figure he's a busy guy.
Yeah.
But 3 notes is one of the things that he does to give that sense of contribution. So I don't know about you, but I only get bills in the mail. I'd love it if somebody would drop
Somebody
me.
sent me a nice letter that says something nice about you.
Honestly, one year, I'm terrible at birthdays and remembering anniversaries. So one year I took out a whole stack of birthday cards and I just sent it out to all my friends and said, please forgive me. I don't know what the date is, but I'm going to wish you a happy birthday now. And they all died laughing and they all loved it. So just think of what some small thing even can do for you to help you feel that sense of contribution. It's friendship, it's community. There are just things that you can do. And before I turn it over to Kerry, can I take one more minute?
Absolutely, because I just wanted to chime in, because what you literally were just talking about with contribution, we just talked about, all of us in your yoga class on Thursday night, was love languages. And, so the idea of giving somebody a little note, if your love language, if you haven't heard about love languages, we can put it in the chat. I'll give you the information. But one of them is words of affirmation. So if somebody telling you or sending you a card that says things that, empower you and make you feel better and, again, add to your self-confidence, then that's your language, and accept that. And you can speak that language to other people too. So to your point, sending letters, sending notes to people. I am not a hoarder by any stretch of the imagination, but if anyone ever sends me a sweet note or a thank you letter, I keep it. And there's certain ones that I keep out on platforms in my office and in my bedroom where I see them all the time. So I can read what other people think and feel about me, because that's my love language. They're affirming that I'm a good person and there's a reason why I exist. And so that's what I wanted to share about your contribution. So even something as simple as a little card is a big deal for someone who has that love language.
Yeah, I've also heard about when the good things happen in your life, either printing it out or writing it down and putting it in a jar. And anytime you're having a down moment, start reading those.
That's a good idea too.
To build you up.
Yeah, I like that too.
Mhm.
All right. Hope y'all are getting these nuggets. I'm getting them. Which I'm glad we're recording so I can listen to them again and remember them. So.
And one of the other philosophies is gratitude fills your heart. It does help you to feel that fulfillment. And so to have a gratitude journal, I know a lot of people are great with journals. I don't happen to be one of them. I am getting better at talking to my angels and asking them for help and honoring what they show up in my life, and verbally saying thank you. So another thought is, before you go to bed at night, you write down 2 or 3 things that you're grateful for, but it can't be the same thing every night.
Gotta change it up.
Gotta change it up. That's right. So gratitude is certainly a great way to add that sense of fulfillment for yourself. So I hope that in a wrap up, you can see that being honest with yourself, being curious with yourself, offering yourself some positives, feeling a sense of gratitude is very empowering. And that's what I'm about. I'm about empowering you as people. What I will be offering, but I'll open it up as just a quick look. When Sherry And Kerry talked about words that make you feel worthy, that build your self-confidence, that help you to be fulfilled. I'm going to ask you, what are the words that undermine you? What is that negative language that we use that we wouldn't use with a best friend, but we use with ourselves? You're not going to walk up to a best friend and say, God, you look like a dog today. When was the last time, you shampooed your hair? We're not going to say that to a friend. But when we look in the mirror in the morning, or worse, in my case, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, do I look in the mirror and say, whoa, girlfriend, you got this? No, I say, where's my concealer? I need some lipstick. I actually need a nap. It's funny, I still nap. Do you still nap?
No, I napped for a very brief time in college and grad school, and I had the 20-minute power nap perfected.
Yeah.
And then I started working, and my nap time was work time, so I stopped napping. I have to be sick if I nap now.
If you're a napper like I am, it can be empowering because you can get up and feel like you can do it all over again and really feel strong. Are you a napper at all?
I don't nap anymore because I can't just keep it to the power nap. And I'm up all night.
So I'm kind of
Sound like the IT guy.
going off on a tangent here, but
Shocking. We
I know.
could do this.
I know. There's another book. It's called Time. And I think the guy who wrote it was Daniel Pink. And our super tech guy is looking to put it in our chat, or maybe he's going to find it for us. But anyway, it's a fascinating read because it's all about the right time for things. So if you're going to nap, like it tells you how long you should nap, what time of day you should nap. But and all other things too, like if you're interviewing for a job, what's the best time for an interview? What's the best, those types of things. Is that it? When? Yes, I think that's it. So it's not called Time, it's called When. Randall, that was very helpful. But I want to kind of take over from where you're talking, because again, it's a perfect segue. And what I wanted to talk about was rejection, because again, rejection, chapter number 2 in the book. So she hits it right out of the gate. And because it's something that we all deal with, and we all deal with it in different ways. And a lot of it has to do with, to your point, those negative thoughts that we say to ourselves are ways that we kind of reject ourselves. So the first part of rejection I want to talk about is our fear of rejection. So when we're afraid of something, we're not even putting ourselves out there. So when I think back on a time where that happened, the first thing that popped into my mind was when I went to college. So when I was in high school, I was one of those people that did all kinds of stuff. And one of the things I loved doing was being in the school plays. And so when I went to college, I went to a very small college. And so I thought, oh, I'm going to audition for one of the musicals. And so I did. First semester, freshman year, I, put my name down, signed up for an audition. Well, then I find out that, because I didn't know this, because I was not a theater major, but we had a theater major and a dance major. And there were people in my community where I went to college who are phenomenal performers. Like they're on Broadway and they're traveling, troops and everything.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I don't think I'm going to fit in here. And it was that fear of rejection. I didn't even go to the audition. Like I just cut myself out right then and there. And so my question to each of you is, I want you to think about some of these different ways that you might have experienced rejection. And then what was that negative thought that came into your head? In my case, it was, you're not good enough. You're not going to be in this play. These people don't want to be with you. What were the kind of messages that your, negative thoughts were giving you at that time, where you had a dream, you had an idea, you had a goal, and then the fear of rejection stopped you in your tracks and you didn't even try it? Another kind of rejection I think that we've all experienced is when we were rejected from something by someone, and it has nothing to do with us, but it completely changes our lives. Like it's the rejection that you've had that just sends you reeling. And again, I mean, being vulnerable, I'll share it. I used to joke about my 20s, like when they say, like, oh, if you could go back and relive a decade of your lives, I'm like, it sure as hell won't be my 20s. That was not a good decade for me. But I literally, if I were to put a chapter name to that part of my life, it would have been called rejection. In my 20s, I was fired from not one, but 2 jobs. I invested 10 years in a young man. And 6 months before we were committing ourselves to each other, he told me he loved me, but he wasn't in love with me. So that shot everything out. Like, if I think back to what I thought I was going to have and my goals and my dreams when I was 17 and graduated from high school, and looked at my life when I was 27, so 10 years, that 10-year gap, none of those goals happened, and
I picked up where you left off from 27 to 35. I was like, okay, I'm done again.
yeah. And so again, we all have these times in our lives, but the point is we kind of have to figure out how to boost ourselves up and get back up and not, again, follow into that spiral. So again, I'll challenge you to think of a time where someone rejected you and it sent you reeling, but it wasn't your fault. It wasn't you, you were just being you. It was them. It was, the situation was out of your control. And then how do you pull yourself up? Or did you pull yourself up? Or did you let yourself stay down? And that's the other part of when we think about these negative thoughts, is how long do we let them grow in our heads and in our minds?
Good point. Good question.
But
And I think you have to be curious as to why it happened, because otherwise you tell yourself a story that isn't even true.
right,
You make it up
right.
if you don't
Right.
like
Oh,
try
yeah.
to validate it.
Yes, absolutely. And then the third kind of rejection, I mean, again, I'm going to put it out there. You are rejected for being you. Like, you are just not the person that was right for the situation. So I think back, and this is going to be funny if you know me, you'll get this. So again, I thought I was a good performer. I could sing, I could dance, I could act, not in college, but when I was a mom, I used to sing in the car, like young mom. I still do it now, but I'm mostly by myself. But that's the point. So I'm driving in the car and I'm singing along, and my son, who was like 3 years old, cute as a button, sitting in the back seat, is like, "Mom, stop." And I thought he meant stop the car. Like, I thought something happened. And I'm like, what's going on? He goes, "Stop, just stop singing." And I was like, I thought I was doing this song justice, and apparently I wasn't. So again, sometimes we are who we are, and who that is not going to rub well with the people we're around. So again, once you get that feedback of "stop, mommy, stop," do you let it get to your
May
core?
1st to my daughter, who has 2 children, and then I picked up the phone and I started to sing happy birthday. She goes, no.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, I get the gist.
Send money, don't
Yeah,
send.
I get the gist. But, so again, we have to think, when we think about rejection, and it's great that we can all laugh about this now, because again, time heals all wounds, but there is a wound there.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the positive intelligence program, one of the analogies that they use to our negative thoughts is the hot stove. So if you imagine these negative feelings, these negative thoughts that you're saying to yourself when you're feeling rejected, whether you've rejected yourself because you're pretending to be someone else because you want to be accepted, if you were rejected, again, through no fault of your own, or maybe it was you were not the right person, the negative thoughts, how long do you let them sit in your mind and grow? Because one thing that, all of us as coaches tell our clients, whatever you feed grows.
Mm-hmm.
So if you feed those negative thoughts, guess what? Those negative thoughts are going to keep growing, and they're like weeds. Positive thoughts are the same though. If you feed those, if you feed your gratitude, if you feed your, sense of abundance, those things are going to grow as well. And you get to choose. It's a choice that we make all the time. And so when we're rejected, there are a couple things that, again, what should we do kind of situation. So if you can, right after a rejection, if you think about it, take a couple of deep breaths. That pause, there is power in that pause. And when you can pause, that allows the logical part of your brain to kick in and get real on the emotion, not the thought, not that negative lie that you're telling yourself, but the emotion. Like,
Say that
what
word
am I
again.
feeling? The lie?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. It's a lie. It's a lie.
And you're sort of reframing it.
Right. And then within that small space, you are able to reframe it. You are able to be curious. You are able to, step back and say, yeah, maybe I wasn't the right person for that job, or maybe he wasn't the right person for me, or, whatever it is, but take that pause. The other thing you mentioned, treat yourself like your best friend. What would you tell your best friend if they were in the situation that you are in right now and feeling the way you feel? And speak that. Or imagine yourself as the beautiful little girl or little boy that you were when you were younger. Would you say the things that are going on in your head to that child? I don't think so. So that's another thing that you can do to kind of get over that negative thought of rejection. Another thing, don't take it personally. I mentioned I got fired twice in my 20s. Neither of them were performance. They were both things that were out of my control. I was, low woman on the totem pole, and I got downsized, but I didn't let it beat me up, thankfully. Recognize that we all say no sometimes. This is one of the things that people I work with that have sales positions, or again, people who are entrepreneurs and they need to sell something or provide a service to people, you're going to get no. You're going to hear no all the time. I mean, gosh, we invited literally hundreds of people to our call today, and there are not hundreds of people on our call today. So there were some people who said no to us. We say no to people all the time.
I'm sure they're going to get the replay.
I hope so. Forgive the other person. Ooh, that's a tough one sometimes. Again, if you're rejected by someone and they don't give you that rejection in a very nice way, it could be hard. But remember, if you hold a grudge, you're not hurting the other person, you're only hurting yourself.
Yeah.
So we need to learn to forgive in that situation and be courageous and try again. I've mentioned it a couple of times. Don't let it keep you down, because if you do, then you stay down. Again, that kind of feeds into that concept of, you're feeding that downness, that you're not worthy, that you're not, the right person, and you never will be. Again, it spirals into that negative mindset.
Yeah, and when you reframe it, you could see if there were lessons learned. So how you can improve yourself the next time.
Yep. So summarizing, and thank you for that.
That is
summarizing in the book Worthy, in the chapter, she talks about 4 R's of rejection. And they are looking at, revealing. So like I said, think of a time where you were rejected. Reveal it. How did you feel? What was going on? Then redefine it. Say it doesn't mean that meaning you gave it, give it a different meaning. Whether that meaning is, what? God's protecting me. That was one of hers. God is protecting me. He doesn't want me to be involved with these people at this time in my life. And by them rejecting me, that was good. That's
Mm-hmm.
one of the ways we can reframe it. And then revisit and reframe.
Mm-hmm.
Again, think about that and put that new meaning that you just came up with that's positive into it and see the gift that comes out of it. And then the last thing is revel. Be happy, celebrate that you got over what it is that really was holding you down, or could have held you down a lot longer than it did. So those are my nuggets about rejection. And like I said, I shared lots of experiences.
You know what? One thing I think we need to share is, how many of you know who Oprah is?
Love Oprah.
Anybody know who Oprah is? Yeah. Do you know that Oprah invited Jamie to have a conversation, gave Jamie her personal phone number,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know the story, but I know where
Do
you're
you
going. Tell
remember how many
everybody.
years it was?
Yep.
Tell us.
Years it was. Not like, oh, Oprah
Yeah.
gave me her phone number. I'm going to wait a couple hours to call her, or I'll
Mhm.
call her next week. It was like 4
3 or
years
4 years. Yeah.
before she felt worthy
Bingo.
to pick up the phone and call Oprah.
And that therein lies the whole nugget. Maybe that's not the nugget. Maybe that's
There's
the
a lot of
wrapping.
nuggets,
There's
yeah.
a lot of nuggets.
Mhm.
That's the wrapping that I think makes this book one of, I think it has to be our all-time favorite, because there's so much for us to continue. And we're gonna wrap it up now. We have any questions, Mr. IT guy?
I actually had a couple.
One of the things that we're gonna do, we're gonna make our offer to you, and then we're gonna do some Q&A. But in the book, there is a graph, and I'm gonna share this with you when we send out some information, because it
Yep.
really helps you to understand your worthiness. And it's, so on one side, it's self-worth, and on the other side, on the bottom side, it's self-confidence, and you gradually grow. Remember, it's gradual. All the things that we're sharing with you are by step. It's not instantaneous.
Yep. So, so please feel free, if you haven't put any questions in the chat yet, do that at this point. And as you're doing that, we will real quickly, how about we just throw out what our offers are to everybody.
Yep.
So go ahead, since you started to talk about yours, you can go first.
Thank you.
Yep.
And we will wrap up on the hour because we really appreciate your time and we respect it. We're going to send you off with some affirmations. However, if we have not answered your question or you want to stay, we will stay and answer your questions. So if you have to run, we understand it, but we're not going to run. My offer is going to be twofold. First of all, I will offer you my ebook, which is Resistance to Resilience, because I truly believe that we have not gotten to this stage in our life, whatever season you're in, without developing that resilience. And it's done like a cookbook. Again, it's one ingredient at a time. But the other one is, because we all have words that undermine us, and we're not even 90% of the time aware of those words. Like, what happens when a woman says, "I'm fine," to a man? He runs. Because he knows she is
Cringes.
not fine.
That word doesn't mean what I was told it meant.
Exactly. So we use words that undermine us, and they're so subtle. I'm offering you 30 minutes. In 30 minutes, I guarantee you, I will find your word or your phrase, and we will fix it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. And I like that it's in 30 minutes. So again, for
There you
those of
go.
us who feel really stuck with time, 30 minutes, we can do it.
There you go.
Awesome. That's a great idea.
Take it away.
How about you?
I'm offering 3 free coaching sessions to, look at your health history, look at when you've tried to improve your health before and what roadblocks you might have encountered, and get you on the right path, to get you to start again. Or if you've never tried to improve your health, I'll help you come up with a strategy where you're taking simple steps over time and not doing something extreme that you're not going to be able to sustain. So I look forward to hearing from people.
Yay.
Okay, awesome. And I'm actually, mine is going to be twofold as well. And that's, originally, I wanted to offer a continuation of our conversation in person. So it was going to be for people that are local to the Lake Norman area. We're going to get together in June for 3 Wednesday evenings at a coffee shop. And we're just going to keep the conversation going about Worthy. What are some of the nuggets? Even if you haven't read the book, you're still going to get a lot out of the conversation. So that's one thing. So if you are local, that's an offering that we're going to do. But if you're not local, I don't want you to feel that you can't continue the conversation. And so we'll do a Zoom call on Monday evenings. And again, I'll send you the dates and times, but it'll actually start this coming Monday. It'll be the next 3 Mondays. And then the Wednesday in person will be next Wednesday, and those following 3 Wednesdays where we get together. But again, it's a conversation. There's, some people really enjoy being able to talk to other people about things that they're, feeling or going through. Or again, with the book as our map, we can talk about the chapters that really resonated with us or things that we have questions about. And I'll be there to kind of guide you through that.
And it builds community.
So
which
yeah,
is
so you got
powerful.
a 30-minute option, a very generous 3-session one-on-one option, and then a group option with myself. So hopefully something like that will resonate with each of you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, Mr. Edson?
We do. First question comes from Heather Camille to Sherry. Great nuggets of wisdom already. Would love to hear more about overcoming the scarcity mentality. Apparently that really resonated with Heather. So why don't you go ahead and address that?
Yeah, scarcity, I think we're like through society, we're told, you know, you need to do all these things because there's not going to be enough. There might not be enough spots at a certain college. There might not be enough men to find a partner. It's just always thinking of what don't I have and the urgency to get it, instead of just saying, this is my life, this is what I'm thankful for, and living in that moment and not thinking about what you don't have.
Yeah, I think you're right. Gratitude really is kind of the antidote to the scarcity.
Yeah. Do we have another one, Mr. IT?
We do. This comes from Susan Connor.
Yes.
And it really apparently it resonated with her when you said, is this all there is? So for her, she's in a nursing career, and sometimes she thinks that this is all there is. And I think you with your medical background can probably relate.
I think that as long as we can get clear and change the story, so this is not all there is, we're telling ourselves that story. And in my group coaching sessions, I have found that one of the most difficult things for women to do is rewrite that story. Well, we can rewrite that story. And so when we look at, is this all there is? Yes, this is all there is right at this moment. And what can I add? What can I grow?
And what can I
into?
take away?
And what can I remember those hats? What can I let go of? I did let go of my nursing hat. I did let go of some other stuff. So it made room for me to be this coach. And speaking of rejection, I'm just going to toss in, it took me a long time to decide to be a coach, because it said you're a life coach. And I thought that meant, well, my life has got to be perfect before I can go and coach anybody else. It took me a long time to realize that it's the vulnerability that each of us have shared with you today that has helped us to be coaches.
And again, it's relatability. I mean, we've all had experiences that gave us those feelings of, you know, low self-worth or high self-worth, low self-confidence, high self-confidence, rejection, you know, fear, abundance. We've all been there. So the relatability is, I think, key to coaching. And, you know, and that question of, you know, is this all there is? For me, that came 5 years ago when I looked at my life, and there were I don't want to say a number, but there were three. 3 is a big number for in a lot of, you know, ways, but 3 people passed away unexpectedly within a 3-month period in my life. And like I said, it was unexpected. And so it was like, oh, is this really what I should be doing with my life? Like, what if something bad happened to me right now? Am I truly living the life I'm meant to be living?
Good. That's
it caused a shift.
Well, and the shift is a good thing. Yeah. And we're going to wrap it because I think we're at time. We really, really, really want to say thank you. We really hope that you will reach out to us. All of our email addresses are in the chat. So go scroll back up, take out those email addresses. Please reach out to us, and we will be reaching out to you with the replay and with our offers. And we are going to stay, as I said, and answer any other questions for any of you.
Jalen, I see your question. We'll answer your question after what Sandy is gonna share next.
Perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to send you off with some affirmations. Stay and listen to the affirmations, and then join us back in here for some Q&A. So again, we want to say thank you. We're all going to take a deep breath with you. So breathe it in. Settle in, let it all be released, and here come your affirmations.